So, what actually happens when you mix a presidential seal of approval with the, let's just say, wild world of crypto? Well, you get a rocket launch and then a really, really spectacular crash. Today, we're going to unpack the whole story of the Trump token.
Okay, just look at these numbers. Back in January 2025, a single Trump token was flying high at about 75 bucks. Fast forward to today, and it's barely holding on at around 8.5. That is a massive drop. We're talking over 85%. So the big question is, what on earth happened here?
And that's exactly what we're going to get into. I mean, how does a token with arguably the highest profile endorsement you can get just collapse so dramatically? And, for anyone who's still holding on, what's next? All right, let's dive right in.
Okay, so first things first. Before we can really get into the crash, we've got to talk about the boom. Because this wasn't just some random crypto launch, oh no. This thing was timed for maximum political impact.
I mean, the timing was just perfect. Or, it seemed perfect. The token drops just a few days before the inauguration. Then, bam, an official social media endorsement hits. And it's like pouring rocket fuel on a fire. The hype just explodes right at the peak of the political moment, and boom, the price shoots up to $75. It was seriously a masterclass in how to tie political momentum directly to market mania. And the marketing? So clever. It wasn't just sold as an investment, right? It was pitched as a digital fan token. So for supporters, buying in didn't feel like a financial move. It felt like a political statement, a way to show your loyalty. And that simple idea just opened the floodgates for a huge wave of new investors. A lot of them people who had never, ever touched crypto before. But as we all know, what goes up that fast? Well, it usually comes down even faster. And the very same political hype that built that rocket, it was also its peak altitude. After that, well, gravity started to kick in hard. So it wasn't just one thing that caused the crash. It was really a perfect storm of a few different things. First, you had that classic crypto saying, buy the rumor, sell the fact. The inauguration was the peak, and then the hype just vanished. Then came the tough questions, the ethical scandals, accusations of it being a pump and dump. That, of course, brought regulatory heat with his proposed Meme Act. And maybe the biggest thing? The fear that millions and millions of tokens held by insiders were about to be dumped onto the market. And, this skepticism wasn't just coming from political circles. Nope. It was coming from the very heart of the crypto world itself. I mean, when someone like Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, for goodness sake, warns about your project, people in crypto listen. His statement basically called these political tokens a threat to transparency, which just chipped away even more in investor confidence. But, behind all these charts and these crazy headlines, there are hundreds of thousands of actual people. So let's talk about their experience for a minute. Because for a lot of them, this was their very first time dipping their toes into crypto. And boy, did it turn sour fast. Just let this number sink in for a second. A full 80%. According to Chainalysis, 80% of the people who bought this token early had less than $1,000 in crypto assets, total. This wasn't Wall Street pros or seasoned crypto traders. This was a movement driven by small-time, first-time buyers who just got swept up in all the excitement. And the change in mood online, it was brutal. I mean, it went from all these trending hashtags and this feeling of being part of a movement to forums just filled with heartbreaking stories of people's losses. The whole story just flipped from political statement to financial pain. And honestly, for a lot of people, it really hurt the reputation of crypto as a whole. I saw a comment on Reddit that I think just sums it up perfectly. This person said it opened the doors into crypto for many people and on the other hand, slammed them in their faces. And that's really it, isn't it? For most of these new investors, this wasn't some warm welcome to the world of crypto. It was a big, flashing warning sign to stay away. So you might be wondering, was this crash completely out of the blue? Well, not really. If you knew where to look, if you kind of lifted up the hood on this thing, there were some major red flags right from the get-go. First off, let's just be real about what this token is. Forget the official branding for a second. By pretty much every definition, the TRUMP token is a meme coin. What does that mean? It means it has little to no real-world use case or special technology behind it. Its value comes almost completely from community hype and social media buzz, which, as we've just seen, can disappear in a flash. Okay, this right here, this is probably the single biggest red flag of all. who actually owned the tokens. Get this, only 20% of the tokens were sold to the public. A whopping 80% were held by insiders. That is just an insane level of risk. Think about it. If those insiders decide to sell even a small piece of what they own, they can completely flood the market and just crush the price for every single regular person holding the token. And here's the brutal results of that structure. An analysis from the New York Times paints a really stark picture. What this was essentially was a massive transfer of wealth. While the insiders were set up to make millions, the data suggests that more than 800,000 regular investors together lost something like 2 times billion dollars. Just wow. All right, so we've looked at the boom, we've looked at the bust, and we've dug into why it happened. So that leaves the big billion-dollar question. For anyone who might still be holding on to this token, what do the analysts think is going to happen next? So where could the price go from here? Well, analysts are basically looking at 3 possibilities. The pessimistic scenario. The price just keeps on sliding as people lose interest. The most likely outcome, what they call the base case, is that it just gets stuck, kind of hovering in this range, not really going anywhere. And even the optimistic scenario, that only sees it getting back to maybe $15, and that would need a whole new wave or hype that frankly nobody thinks will last. So the bottom line here is pretty clear. The general consensus from analysts is that a return to those glory days is not happening. The upside seems really limited, but the risk of it falling even further, that's still very, very real. So if you're someone still holding this token, what does the analysis suggest you do? Well, it lays out a pretty straightforward 3-step plan. Step 1, be honest with yourself about the risk. Acknowledge that this is a super high-risk speculative asset, pretty close to just gambling. Step 2, seriously consider taking action, whether that's selling some or all of it to cut your losses and protect what you have left. And step 3, think about reallocating that money into something with, a more solid foundation than just social media hype. In the end, this whole story about the Trump token makes you ask a much bigger question, one that goes way beyond just this one coin. Is a meme coin, any meme coin, an asset built purely on hype and attention, ever a safe investment? Or is it always just a game of musical chairs, a high-stakes gamble on who can sell before the music stops? That's a question every single person in this space has to think about.